All right, this is to get us caught up on the addition and subtraction test. The first thing that we've got to be absolutely clear on is that there are two sort of categories of things that we need to be thinking about. We have numbers. And we have operations. Numbers are what we call terms, and what we're dealing with right now, there are two types of numbers or two types of terms, positive and negative. What's the difference between the two? Positive numbers move to the right on our number line, while negative numbers move to the left on the number line. Now our operations, there are two. There is addition and there is subtraction. Addition just means do what comes next. That's all. Whereas subtraction means do the opposite of what comes next. And it's important to realize that subtraction literally is just the opposite of addition. So it makes sense that if addition just means do whatever comes next, that subtraction would mean to do the opposite of what comes next. So let's look at some examples. If I gave you the problem 5 plus 3, the first thing we need to do is figure out what's our first number, what's our first term. And it's a 5. And since it's just a 5, that means it's a positive 5. So we're going to move to the right 5 on the number line. Next, we need to identify what is our operation. Well, our operation is and. That means do what comes next. Well, what does come next? Our next number is 3. So that means go to the right 3. And our answer would come out to be 8. Oops. Now let's take a look at another problem. What if I gave you the problem negative 5 plus 3? Well, once again, what's our first number? Negative 5. What direction do negative numbers go? They move to the left. Now what's our operation? It's a plus sign. That means do what comes next. And what does come next? It's a positive 3. So our answer comes out to be negative 2. Moving along, let's throw in, what if I said negative 4 plus negative 3? Well, same process. What number comes first? It's a negative 4. What direction do negative numbers move? They move to the left. So I go to negative 4. We always start at 0, right? Then what's my operation? My operation is plus. That means do what comes next. Okay, well, what does come next? It's a negative 3. So that means go to the left 3. What does my answer come out to be? Negative 7. All right, let's take a look at some subtraction problems. What if I said 4 minus 2? Well, what's my first term? It's a positive 4. That means go to the right 4. Now what's my operation? Hey, it's a subtraction sign. Fabulous. That means I need to do the opposite of whatever comes up next. Well, what does come up next? It's a positive 2, but I need to do the opposite of that. So I need to move to the left, right? Positive 2 moves to the right, but my operation says do the opposite of this. So I need to move to the left 2. And my answer comes out to be 2. Moving along. What if I gave you the problem negative 5 minus 3? All right, first number. It's a negative 5. That means go to the left 5. Then my operation is subtraction, so I need to do the opposite of whatever comes next. Well, this says go to the right 3 because it's positive. I need to do the opposite of that, so I need to go to the left 3. My answer comes out to be negative 8. All right, so let's look at another example. What if I said negative 3 minus negative 2? Okay, first number, go to the left 3. Up. My operation is a subtraction sign, and my next number is a negative 2. Well, this says go to the left 2, right? Negative numbers go to the left. But I have to do the opposite of that, so I need to go to the right 2. My answer comes out to be negative 1. You're going to be absolutely fine when working with positive and negative numbers as long as you take the time to think through problems the way we're doing it right now. Now, there are a few properties that we need to talk about before we're done. The first of which is the associative property. This says that how we associate numbers when we're adding doesn't matter. And what I mean by that, if I said 5 plus 2 plus 1, it doesn't matter if I do 5 plus 2 first, which would be 7, and then add 1. I would get to 8, right? Or I could do, 5 plus 2 plus 1. I could associate the 2 and the 1 together, right? Do them first. Well, what's 2 plus 1? That's 3 plus 5. Hey, look at that. I still get 8. The second property that we need to be aware of, which we use all the time, is called the commutative property. The commutative property. And this says, hey, you know what? The commute, I think about commute as like traveling. So like the way that I travel to the answer doesn't matter. 3 plus 5, or I could do 5 plus 3. They both equal the same thing. So the order does not matter when adding. Now, lastly, we need to talk about the inverse property. Of addition. This is pretty straightforward, but it does require a little bit of thought, and this is going to become really useful when we're dealing with algebra. The inverse property is just a way of explaining the relationship between addition and subtraction. It says, hey, if I have 3 plus 5, what does that equal? That equals 8, right? Right 3, right 5, that gets me to 8 on the number line. It says, okay, so I have these two terms that when they're added together make a new term. And we're going to call this new term the sum of these two terms. Well, if I take that sum and I remove either one of these parts, right, I'm going to be left with the other part. If 8 is the sum of two things and I take one of those things away, I'll be left with the other thing. And as a consequence, what may be a little bit harder to conceptualize, to picture, is if I have some problem that says, 8 minus 4 equals 4. Hey, let me do a different problem. If I said 8 minus 5 equals 3. When we look at this, we need to realize 8 must be the sum of these two things. And therefore, if I add these two things, I'm going to wind up with that same number I started with. This is just showing the relationship between addition and subtraction. And in general, we write this algebraically. If I have any term or number and I add it to some other number, I'm going to get a sum. And if I take that sum and I remove one of those parts, I'm left with the other part. And going back to the commutative property, when I say C minus B, I could also be saying C minus A because the order here doesn't matter, right? So this is our inverse property. And let me just give you kind of like one example of how you might see this on a test. Cough, cough. If I gave you a problem that said 5 plus what equals negative 4, you would say, okay, this term and some other term make the sum negative 4. So if I take that sum negative 4 and I subtract the part that I know, 5, I'm going to be left with the other part. Well, what is negative 4 minus 5? Negative 4, we can just go back to what we were doing earlier. Negative 4 means go to the left 4. My operation is do the opposite of subtraction. And my other number is a positive 5. So I'm saying do the opposite of going to the right 5. So I need to go to the left 5. And that means that my answer is negative 9. And we can double check this. 5 plus negative 9 equals negative 4. Go to the right 5. Go to the left 9. Hey, look at that. I wind up at negative 4. So that did work out. All right. So good luck on the test. Thanks.